So this call is something that I mentioned to before we started, that it's something that I've really wanted us to put together since we started First Home IQ a couple years ago, because this is really core to our mission. And our goal is to help you guys, everybody on this call, to be better educators in your communities. That might help you with growing your business. That might help you with just building partnerships, doing outreach, volunteering. But today's call is really focused on the mission aspect and how to get started with those community partnerships. For me, this is really core to my background. I started my career as a social worker and built community partnerships and did a lot of education through those partners. And that's what really drove me into everything I've done through my career. I spent about 8 years with a company I built called Cultural Outreach, where I worked directly with lenders and helping them build community partnerships. That was about half of the work that we did. So this is a very, big part of what I think I care about, what I think that is also something that it feels good. It's something that many people, if not all of the people on the call here today, it's something you care about, truly just giving back. But I also think it's something that helps you really grow your business. It builds new partnerships. It builds trust. It builds a brand of someone who, in today's market, where there's such little trust, especially with next gen consumers, it helps people to see you as someone that they can actually talk to and have kind of open that door. So we'll get into all of that, but I would love to hear from each of you on the panel here, about kind of why you're here, what drives you to have this kind of purpose in community outreach, and also how you're currently or have been or plan to be involved in community outreach. So Jane, let's start with you. And I also want to spotlight the fact that Jane has been with us from the very beginning of starting First Home IQ, one of our top donors, very involved, and yeah, just so appreciative of your involvement, Jane.
Thank you. And I'm Jane Floyd. I'm in Tampa, Florida. And first, when Kristen, we're all asked so many times if we want to be involved in different projects and communities and missions, and like they couldn't get the sentence out, and I'm like, count me in. So going back to what you said, just I think all of us are here, right? Just because we care so much, and it's really it's generational, stopping generational. Not only, I mean, it even goes to poverty, right? In some of the places that we're looking to reach. And so you hit the nail on the head, Kristen. And I have found that being involved in the community, it fuels my soul, but it builds so much trust. And I can tell you, I'm excited to hear Vicma, but I could go on with, as a result of being involved in the community, I literally, the connections that I made, and that wasn't the purpose, but I'm definitely getting more deals. But I want to just share. So we have, and we haven't done near as much as some of you. So although we tell everybody what First Home IQ is, and that we're an advocate. And but like we just had some great success, just thinking outside the box. Like, went to a connection that I had that was actually a librarian, and more thinking like, I want to do an event showcasing First Time Home IQ for the community. And instead it turned into, she said, well, how about this? They host community service hours, as we all know, and these are kids between 13 and 17 getting community service hours. And they do a training. It's a 1 hour a month. They have to train and educate. So they asked, would you like to come in? So we had huge success with that. As you all know, the resource section in First Home IQ has some great resources. So we took the PowerPoint about budgeting, and then we really tweaked it and kind of made it our own, and then added like a fun game with it. And it was, here's the thing that was so powerful. There were kids in there between 13 and the oldest 17. And I think we had 22 in the room that evening. And we made it fun. So when you're speaking to a group like that, like I'm super animated and excited and think everybody should be, but we got them excited by playing games. And I will tell you afterwards, the librarian told us, she said, this was the most engagement. So we got everyone engaged again by taking some of the questions you guys provided and then added our own. And so just asking a lot of questions around money. But she said that was the most engagement she had ever seen. And then it actually resulted in talking about how this can help your business. It resulted in the head librarian was so impressed. She asked, would we come back and would we teach budgeting to the entire staff? And so that's something that I love teaching budgeting. That for us, and now that librarian now has another job at another library as a director. So now we're just going to kind of make this a community thing where we're going in to libraries. So I don't want to talk too much. I just want to share our library story and just how impactful it really was for FirstHome IQ.
Awesome. And there's several things I want to pull out of that. One is the fact that as you share being your involvement with FirstHome IQ, for instance, or different, involvement with community partnerships, all of that allows you to build trust just by talking about it and and inspiring other people to do the same, to talk about that mission and education. And the other thing is that starting with one relationship and building from there is the way to go. It's all about, that kind of grassroots approach. And so we'll dig into more of those like step-by-step approaches, but there's so much there. Thanks so much for sharing. And thank you so much, Dan, for being here as well. We will hop to you, and if you need to drop early, feel free. But I want to just, I think you bring a different perspective to the group. Each of you here are doing different things in the community and different ways of approaching education and outreach. So Dan is someone I've known for a very long time, since maybe beginning of my career in mortgage, and he has always been very passionate about education. We've done many calls just talking about that. So Dan, would love to have you kind of introduce why you think education is important to your business, and also kind of what you've done or are currently doing around community outreach or kind of school partnerships, anything like that.
I love that. Well, it's fun and always exciting to be here. And anytime I get to talk about money, with regards to what we do for a living in the mortgage space is so important. I think it's our obligation. I think it's our duty. I tell loan officers this, and then I kind of open with this when I teach homebuyer classes. So I'll do 2 homebuyer classes every month. It's just what I do. And so if you don't do homebuyer classes, this might not be relevant to you. But it's something where I found a gap. I got in the mortgage industry in 2008, and I found a gap right away that it was like the industry, and including realtors, were order takers. It was like, oh, you want to buy a house? Cool. Are you approved? Go to a bank. Okay, check the boxes. You're pre-approved. Now go buy a house. Make the largest financial decision of your life without any education. That's smart. And we saw what happened as a result of that. So when I got into the industry, as a former college and pro baseball coach, I was like, I made a living and I changed kids' lives because I taught them how to eat right, how to be an elite performer relative to baseball, how to work out properly, and then how to do the right drills, and then how to find gaps that we get the most out of their God-given talent. That's the same thing I'm doing right now, just with real estate. That's it, just money and real estate. And so at homebuyer classes, that's what I'll say. I'll say, listen, I'm looking at all of your finances when you come to get pre-approved for a home. And, as you can see, I got some gray hair. I'm kind of old. I've been doing this a long time. I've been investing in real estate for 25 years. I've been in the stock market for about 15 years now. I've fought that for years, thinking it was super risky. And then I got some education, and it's super risky not being in the stock market. And so, and I start off with that my number one job that I get paid to do every single day is to get you funding to be in a home, to get into a home, your dream home. And this is the other thing I talk about. Every purchase is that person's dream home. Think about it this way. Most loan officers and realtors are going to talk to first-time home buyers as it's your starter home, it's your step-up home. No, it's your dream home. Because 2 years ago, you were dreaming of buying a home, weren't you? You were dreaming 5 years ago of owning a home in Seattle. This is a dream come true. We're making dreams come true. So I want this to be a great dream. I want this to be a dream they remember. And so we're going to talk about money, and we're going to talk about budgeting. So if you go to, and this is another thing, you guys, I heard she's a marketing gal. About 5 years ago, I was challenged by, and her name is Deb Bird. A lot of us probably know her, and she's in the mortgage coach community. She said on a call, she was like, show me, don't tell me. And that woke me up. We could talk about money all we want. Show me that you are passionate about money. Don't say you're passionate about money. Show me that we're clients for life. Don't tell me that. And so it was about 2015, I created budgetwithdan.com. 2018, I renovated it. And I wanted to show all my clients. I give this to every single one of my clients. And I say this, whether you're buying a $500,000 house or a $5 million house, I'm sending you to budgetwithdan.com. I've upgraded it so it's super relevant to everyone. But at budgetwithdan.com, thanks to Kristen and thanks to what you guys are doing in your community, I've upgraded my one-page budget plan. Super simple. And I teach people this because people ask me all the time, what should my payment be relative to my income? I heard Dave Ramsey say it should be 30%, no more than 30%. I'm like, well, that's cool. But is that 30% gross? Is it 30% net? Do you even know what net and gross is? And so they don't. And so what I talk about is the money that you deposit in your bank account every single month relative to what your payment should be. But then what these blogs and these financial influencers aren't talking about is if I have a client that's got good credit and they got 5 or 10% down, but they're maxing out their 401k and they're debt free, I'm like, max out your monthly housing budget. I don't care. You're doing things right versus a client, you guys, that has average credit score. They have some debt and they're not leveraging their 401k benefits and stuff like that, right? So these are conversations I teach. These are conversations I have. And then from there, I just tee up our entire process around budgeting, FirstHome IQ, what we're doing here with this community and education and teaching. So that's a business standpoint. What my passion project is just kids. So going into local high schools, the University of Washington brought me in as a guest speaker in 2018. Next thing I know, the dean's calling me and he's like, hey, would you be interested in an affiliate professor position? I'm like, not really. I make good money in the mortgage space. You know, your $8,000 a year really isn't going to. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know what? These are juniors and seniors in their business department and real estate school. Let me give this a shot. And I did it for 1 year, 2019. And I can show you like direct messages on Instagram. These kids are now out of college and they're reaching out to me and going, in 6 years at the UW, you're the only professor that I remember. And it was because I gave them hope around money. I gave them hope that you could be wealthy one day. I gave them hope to buy real estate. You don't have to wait for you to make 200 grand a year before you buy your first home. And it's just that turned more into a passion project for me. And when I saw these University of Washington business students and real estate students get so much value and fill out their course professor surveys and the dean calls me and was like, dude, you're like acing these professor surveys that we never see. What are you doing? Can we record your calls? And I was like, listen, I'm just giving them hope, man. I'm just giving these kids hope they can go and do anything they want in life because their professors aren't. Their professors are broken. They're not managing their money right. They're just showing up to teach. And so anyways, I do that at the U. I'm not an affiliate professor anymore. It took way too much time. So I just come in and guest speak. I take the same program that I taught there and I condense it down to an hour for local high schools. And it has a lot to do with everything that you guys are teaching with just more, motivation, inspiration, and encouragement for these kids that if a ding dong like Dan Keller can do something with his life and make the most out of his financials, I swear anyone can.
That is So inspiring. And this is exactly the kind of feedback when we got connected with this school in Brooklyn, when we first started working with schools with FirstHome IQ. I was showing up at the classes where we had guest speakers, and it was virtual. And but the kids' responses, these were juniors and seniors at in like underserved community, you know, it was like but they were so excited to hear every single speaker, and they were all talking about mortgage and finance and stuff that, you know, I was worried that they were going to be like, oh, this is boring, or this is, you know, I don't know, but they were all, because it's practical and it gives people hope, exactly what you said. And so that's so exciting. And I do think it starts with those relationships, and then you build those relationships over time. They stay with you, they follow you, you know. So that's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. So I want to move on to Memo, Guillermo, who goes by Memo. We met each other just earlier this year, and instantly when we were talking, he's crying, I'm crying. I'm like, you are so inspiring. Memo, I would love to for you to share a little bit about why you care about, you know, what we're doing here, and how you're reaching out to your community and schools.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the reason that I decided to become part of First Home IQ was just, I mean, the message is so great, right? Like I've had financial struggles for most of my life. When it's, you know, early on, you screw up your credit, and then all of a sudden you realize what credit is, right? Um, and then you spend some years trying to fix it, and you're on your own, right? There's nobody out there trying to help you, or, you know, back in those days, I didn't realize that there was credit cleaners, right? But they're into it for themselves as well, right? So it's like I had to learn and figure out what I did wrong and how I can fix it. And my parents never had to deal with that stuff, so it's also embarrassing to say, "Hey, we got bad credit. What do I do? How do I fix it?" Um, and so my parents were always good savers. They didn't ever make a lot of money, but they were always good savers. We ate at home every day. Um, my dad had two jobs for the most part until he, became an entrepreneur and started his own business. But they built some wealth, right? They've got a rental property with 2 units. Their house is paid off also, and they've got, plenty of investments in in some retirement accounts, right? So they never talked to me about money. Like just like all the story and all our curriculum is that the conversation never happened, right? My dad might say, hey, would you buy that for? Right? But he wouldn't give me a lesson in, did you just wasted money, right? And it's not his fault. He didn't know he had to, right? So I think that all of the statistics that we get from that next gen home buyer report, um, just everything that people say, like how many times do we talk to people and they say, man, I wish I'd have learned that in school. And it has to do with finances. And so I'm in a position right now with what I know, with what I do, and I'm also in a position with what I do as a volunteer. I'm the field announcer for our soccer team for our high school. So I have a relationship with all these kids. Some of them are going to go into the military, some to trade school, some to college, some are just going to go right into the workforce. But what do they do with their first paycheck? Right? And that's when that habit has to start, right? I just got off the phone with somebody yesterday who just became an RN. They started work. They haven't got their first paycheck yet. But that paycheck is going to be more than double the biggest paycheck she's ever gotten. What do people do when that happens? Right? It's these college kids that Dan's talking about. They graduate from college. Maybe they weren't working in college, or maybe they had a little part-time, or they're working in the cafeteria, work study, whatever it is. Their first paycheck is going to be the biggest check they've ever had at one time. And so what is the habit? What is their celebration is to blow it, right? Instead of start that habit. And so that's who I want to affect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you've done classes, and we'll get into some of the like practical ways to engage there. And I know we've had questions about presentations. We following this, I'll share a little bit after we introduce Vicma, but we do have some resources to help you guys with making those connections, and we're gonna give everybody on this call a full playbook that goes step by step into how to build the relationships, how to actually do the presentations in an engaging way. So I'll share a little bit about that here in a moment. Vicma is the person I have met most recently who came up at an event and said she was an ambassador and just started talking about how she was working with high schools. And I was like, how am I just now meeting you? It's so excited and instantly like, we got to get you on a call. So, Vicma, I would love for you to share a little bit about what you're doing, kind of purpose around that.
Of course. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My story is a little different. I've been a loan officer for only 3 years. So this is the only market I know. I am a mother of four, passionate about educating and empowering first-time home buyers and investors because I had the great opportunity to invest young and retire from corporate America young. So I started working at Verizon when I was 19, and it was my first job, and I bought my first multifamily really young. And I was fortunate enough to work with a loan officer who taught me not only how to purchase that home, but how to scale, pull equity and do it again. So I was also fortunate enough to have someone along my side who advised me to start investing in a 401k. Again, at the age of 19, I didn't know what I was doing. He did. I said, okay, I'll do it. Long story short, again, I was able to retire from corporate America as an engineer at the age of 37. Being passionate about educating and empowering first-time home buyers and again, and investors is near and dear to me as a first-gen immigrant. I want to teach people how to build wealth through real estate, right? So I've always talked to people and I educate from a place of I've done it. I know it's scary, but you can do it. So I was helping my friends and family, again, buy real estate. 3 years ago, I decided to go for it and formally help people as a loan officer. I became an ambassador for First Home IQ early on this year. And the first thing I did was to go into high schools. Again, I'm a mom of four, so I have kids ranging from a rising senior to a fresh kindergartner. Wish me luck in September. I know. So I'm always teaching kids how to save. So my oldest daughters, friends, I would teach them how to save and in turn how to budget. So as an ambassador for First Home IQ, I reached out to my old high school, which happens to be the high school that my daughter's attending. And I partnered up with them and they invited me in. So I teach a class every month. Um, and it's going well. And I'm most excited about partnering with First Home IQ because I know that I have the support and the resources to go ahead and scale what I'm doing. Again, my whole career here as a loan officer is, I call it a passion project. Memo, when you were sharing that we were taught, well, I'll say I, as an immigrant, I was taught how to save, not necessarily how to build wealth. So I use that, what I was taught as a base, but then I share with my buyers how to invest that money. Go ahead and pull it out. You can't out save, retirement money. So go ahead and use that money and buy something. And I correlate buying a house to a piggy bank. I say to them, like, you're putting money in a piggy bank, right? You're paying off this loan. This property is going to increase in value. And then down the line, you could take that money and you can invest in your child's education or buying another home or whatever it is, paying for a wedding. So invest in yourself, it pays it forward. So again, thank you for having me here. And I am excited to learn more about what everyone has to share.
Absolutely. Well, we will get into a bunch of just kind of quick hit questions to help us build this playbook. And Dan, I think you needed to jump off. Is that right? Is there any last words you wanted to share?
Yeah, I got to bounce. A couple people have asked for the presentation that I give. I don't go in and give any slides. Kids don't want more slides. Their teachers teach off a slide. So I go in with a handout. I'll send that over to all of you guys. And then just, I go in with a lot of energy and a lot of hope and inspiration. But all of you guys are super, super smart. Many of you I see here, Jane, that I've looked up to for years. So this is a killer community. Kristen, keep up the amazing job with this movement. It's going big places.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all of your support.
Yeah. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Dan. Bye.
Yeah.
So I want to take just a quick moment. We're going to jump into some of the strategies and things like that. But I wanted to share my screen and walk through just a few things that just kind of center around the mission and resources we have at FirstHome IQ. One thing Memo had mentioned, we do a lot of these research reports. We're about to release a financial literacy report, so keep an eye out for that. But this year we found that over 80% said that they didn't receive any financial literacy in schools, or barely a lesson. So there's just a huge gap here. And this is why we're really pushing that we can come together as an industry to bring that education. You guys are the experts. It has a benefit both for the community, the next generation, and for you to be able to really support growing that mission. So we are in our platform and for FirstHome IQ. If you are an ambassador, we do have a huge bank of presentation materials. And they do have slides, but there's also presenters guides. So if you want to go through and just grab here's questions that you can quickly ask and create engagement, or leverage some of the slides and the presentations. These are designed to be very engaging and facilitate conversation. A couple of these are available in the free resources section as well. So even if you're not an ambassador, we just encourage you to access these resources. We have worksheets. We have even examples of Todd Bookspan doing a presentation on this on a webinar. And then if you are an ambassador, you have access to a presentation library that has all of the social content and email templates, things like that can help you with continuing to have these conversations on every channel. And one exciting thing is that everybody on this call is going to get we do starting a quarterly release of new content. You'll have a presentation you can share with educators, a presentation you can do in the classroom, as well as the playbook I mentioned. And we're also going to put together kind of a few social media posts on the topic of bringing education into schools and your communities. So, and just kind of helping you talk about this problem and also the solution. So the idea is that we just want to make it easy for you to be an educator, and both for your business and for impact. The other thing, we have a flyer that we've created for educators. So if you do have a connection in a school, this is something you can share with them. All it takes is an email or, the text with this PDF, and we'll actually drop this one in the chat. But it walks through the program we have for teachers in schools that is completely free. It is funded completely, by the way, by our ambassador program. So if you are an ambassador, this is where your money goes. It goes to support you guys, but also to bring free education to schools. We have a complete module we have free online courses, as well as a resource library for teachers that includes activities, lesson plans, all of that. And so we kind of go through how to get started, and they can reach out to me. If you're an ambassador, I can also exchange any information here if you want your branding or your information on these flyers. So that is the last thing I wanted to share. I feel like there was one other thing, but we'll come back to it. So, I wanted to share, because you guys had talked just a little bit about the inspiration on how students come out of this. In the classroom, I mean, they pick up and they really soak up this information. So I just want to share just a couple testimonials. This is a student that is from the Brooklyn class I mentioned. I learned taking 20%. So the question asked was like, what are you learning? It was really basic, and they gave really specific answers. So people, soak it up. I learned that taking 20% out of my paycheck and paying myself first can set me up for success. Learned about my 401k. This one was just like killer for me. One of the most surprising things I've learned so far is how many guest speakers have become successful but started with nothing. This is very inspiring because I've never had a chance to talk to successful people. So no matter where you're coming from, I think showing up and just being there, having a conversation, talking about, what you do for work, all of that makes a really big difference. So just wanted to share that as we continue on in the conversation. Okay, and I will drop in, Alex is going to drop in, he dropped in the flyer. He also, if you could drop in, Alex, we're giving a discount for anybody on this call. If you do want to join the ambassador program, we're giving $100 off. It's $200 a month. We do sliding scales, so if money is an issue, we don't want to ever have that prevent you from continuing in the community. So please apply. You can apply for scholarships and things like that. But there's a discount, $100 off. You can sign up there, and there's also a short free trial in there. Okay. So we want to continue on and hit some main points here. We talked a little bit about how this builds trust. Jane, you had started talking about how, being out in the community really is part of your, a little bit of part of the marketing. Could you speak to how this builds trust for your brand and kind of facilitating those relationships?
Yeah. And so I think it's so cool hearing everyone, obviously, all of us are so passionate about fiscal literacy, right? And I mean, my baby's 31, and he's like, you're just, the word budget is like my favorite word. Like I don't care at what age, like I love teaching it. And I think in my story was opposite of Vicma's. I remember purchasing my first home when I was 21 years old, and the loan officer made me feel so small, insignificant, talked down, and that was seared in my brain. So fast forward, when I got into business, I have just always had this just passion to teach people about creating wealth through real estate, right? But also even bigger than that, when we're talking about children, we're talking about teenagers, we're talking about college students, we also have to educate them on the life part, right? It's not, yes, money cannot buy you happiness, right? But it is watching some of these kids in the library. It's about the saving, and it's about giving back, right? So they're learning to pay it forward. And so just different, we're involved in many different things in the community. Even taking, we've brought some of the FirstHome IQ material into, I've had a relationship with a big organization in my area where we've been going in for years now, and they give me the topic, teaching their younger employees all different kinds of topics, right? From budgeting to buying your first home to, it's astonishing how many people don't understand your 401k, right? So to answer your question, Chris, and I think when people in the community, that's what's happened for me, and it was hard at first. I'm on social media a lot, but I don't even know how to get on it. But I think what I know, that's pretty pathetic, isn't it? But people need to see that, I've had people say all my life, all you do is work, yeah, because I'm passionate about it, but I love what I do. But now they see, and that's you say your brand, like people will call me because they know I genuinely want to help, right? And so I think if we're looking at this from like how do you get started? Look at your phone, think about how many clients, people's associates, teachers that you mentioned. I mean, anytime I bring it up, anybody wants to welcome you in to teach, right? We're not asking for anything in return. So I think a first step for anyone that may not be doing any of this, right, is just the resources again that you just went through, Kristen. I had a lot of them, and myself anyway. But then what you have. Take those resources and just say, okay, this week I'm going to reach out to five different people, right? And I'm going to ask, commit to yourself, put it on your calendar. I'm going to commit to one event a month, but how can I help? So I just think that the more you give to the community, and then again, just what's come out of it, it is you just can't measure, right? You can't measure this success, because you can't buy passion, right? And all of you listening to both of you, I can tell how passionate you are, and obviously Kristen starting this. So anybody that's on the call that hasn't done anything, just make a decision and decide what you're going to start with.
Yeah. And guys, if you are an ambassador, we will take you step by step. Like, do not hold back because you are, just overwhelmed or not sure where to start. This is literally what we're here for. So, we'll set up a call and we'll say, okay, let's take it step by step. We'll help you facilitate those conversations, whatever it is. But that is part of the goal today, is just to create something that makes it easy for you to go through that process. And I love that you said budget is your favorite word. I think it's hilarious. My instant reaction is, but even though I've created this whole nonprofit, it's because I can't handle it. Like I feel like I get so overwhelmed by financial information, and this is the idea is like we need to reach out to more people who don't feel good about the word budget, who don't feel, and the more they see you talking about it, making it easy to understand, that opens the door to a whole group of people that are holding back. In the financial literacy report that's going to come out next month, I've just been analyzing the data, and we saw over half said that they feel overwhelmed by financial information, and over half are delaying financial decisions because of this overwhelm. So that's a huge population that may be totally ready to buy, maybe totally ready to make, but they need to feel comfortable. So that's a huge part of this. So Vicma, you have had actually a couple of referrals through your school partnerships. Can you talk a little bit about how you see this growing your business, even though I know you went into this fully as this is my giving back. Can you talk a little bit about what that because I think there's a huge opportunity here in just like you go into a school, all the teachers need this education too, so would love for you to share.
Yes, yes. So, as you mentioned, I went into the school simply because I wanted to give back. And I didn't have a curriculum when I first started. I started with how to budget. No, actually, I started how to save. And then it built from saving to budgeting. Um, what I noticed was that teachers start sitting into these classes because it's during lunchtime. So it's an elective for the kids to join if they like. The audience started growing, not only the students, but teachers started coming in. And little they were asking, like, oh, I want to buy a house, but I don't think I can. So I started having conversations with teachers. I've closed 2 loans for teachers, and I currently have one under contract. Again, this is not something that I expected, but it's a nice welcome, right? So you're not only helping the students, but you're helping everyone else that is in the building. Also, I want to say, Kristen and Katie, thank you for the idea. When I first met you, I shared that I'm in the schools, I'm talking to these girls primarily. I don't have a curriculum, so you offered to help me with that. Also, you encouraged me for me to track them, right? So you encouraged me to build a social media platform for us to stay connected. I started with Instagram because I'm not in TikTok yet, but that's a place for us to stay connected. And it's a close group, but the group has grown, and I have about 25 girls and teachers. I'm going to move into Facebook. I shared it with them, but this is also a great platform to stay connected with these young individuals, and hopefully they'll grow into wanting to purchase something, and they'll remember me, just as the previous person was speaking, right? You make an impact on their life and they'll remember you, just as someone made an impact on my life, which encouraged me to do what it is that I'm doing today.
That is so cool. I mean, 25 people,
Yes.
like that's a huge impact
Right.
that you're able to have, you know?
Since
And
the mastermind in Vegas.
yeah, amazing. I love that.
Mhm.
And as you hear, if you, get testimonials from things like, wow, this has really changed the way I think about this, you can, ask obviously, but if you share that then on social media, other people see, oh, yeah, you really care, you give back, you're doing this and it builds trust. So there's a lot of avenues that you can take giving back and move it into this is part of your business, and this is who you are. So you talked a little bit about I want to get into like if someone wants to take that next step, how do you actually start? Like how do you reach out and I think all of you had personal connections. I do think that's a really great place to start. But we will also include, we have a playbook right now that's for cold outreach. That's been very difficult for us to get in the door. It's been all through relationships as well. But I would love to hear from anyone on the panel. What's something that you would recommend you start with? Like, what's the conversation look like? And as we kind of help people create scripts for reaching out, getting started.
I'll start quickly. I mean, personal connection is always best, right? I started out by reaching out to a teacher that I knew, right? From the teacher, I was introduced to principal. And then my work in this high school spread. So I actually had a city councilor reach out to me and ask me if we can actually develop a curriculum to share with the Boston Public Schools. So I tell people, fit in where you get in. If it's a teacher that you know, ask them, share with them what it is that you want to do, and ask for their support and see if they can get you in the door.
Love that. Jane or Memo, any thoughts on how you kind of get started or what you might say to someone as you're reaching out to facilitate that?
So I kind of did the same thing, right? You figure out who has access to the audience that you want, right? And because of my connection with soccer, the athletic director is also the director for the MESA program, that's Math, Engineering, Science Achievers. And so just in a conversation, I told her that I became an ambassador and what the mission is and that stuff. And then I said, would you entertain allowing me to come into the classroom and just talk to the kids about financial literacy? And I don't think there's an adult on the planet that when you say, financial literacy for young people is going to say, I don't think that's a good idea. Everybody's going to say, wow, nobody taught me that in school, right? And they're just going to be like, yeah, let's do it. But if you don't get the people that have the access to your audience, then it's going to be more difficult, right? So like Vicma, I've got the full 10-course curriculum already on the schedule for that class through the high school. And the teachers are super excited. And like when I did a couple of classes last year at the end of the year, and having the teachers present was a big deal because both of the teachers that were in there could relate to, guys, you're going to need this later. I know you're probably not interested in it right now, but you're going to need it later. I wish I had been taught. Just those phrases that you're always going to hear from the adults, right, of the struggles that happen. They reinforce everything because they have a real life example. Besides the story I'm telling, they're telling a story also within it. And getting in front of those kids, I mean, I had such great responses afterwards. I had parents texting me, thanking me, right? And it makes a difference, it makes a big difference. I even got invited to a graduation party for one of those kids, in those classrooms. So I think accessing the person, right? The schools, like, my connection is soccer, but if you have another connection, maybe you have kids or somebody in that school that you can connect with, I think that's the best way to go about it.
And Andrew Adams had a good point here. Like if you can also, if you don't have that direct connection, put out on your social media or to your network and say, who do you know that I need to know? People would love to make that connection. Like people want this in their communities. They know the problem, and we've created a campaign actually, that's an email template that I'm happy to share with anybody, but it's in our ambassador program that will share, here's, if you want to put on a webinar for parents and their kids, or something like that. But there's a way that you can introduce this and also generate introductions from your network.
Yeah.
So has anyone had success offering these types of curriculum via webinars? Um, I will just say a lot of our ambassadors do this through webinars, and we've done workshops or masterclass masterminds on specifically the webinar strategy, but we're going to continue to do that. I do think that's a really great approach. It's very different. I think being involved like in person in your community is a totally different approach. Oh, but I will say the Brooklyn class that we did was fully virtual and it was still highly, highly impactful. But that was a classroom that was doing that virtual or able to do it virtual. So that's great. So Jane, any thoughts on someone just like wanting to get started, any kind of like process that might be helpful in getting this going?
Well, a couple things. I think, like Mino said, you ask that question, there's not a person on the planet, unless they're a horrible human being, that isn't going to say yes, right, to to education like that. But I think that so I just think it's so easy. Like he said, he's got kids playing there. We all, if you don't have kids, you know somebody. There is absolutely no one that's going to say no if you reach. So we're talking about schools right now. So like for example, I like again, when you have a big sphere, it makes it much easier, right? They're warm calls. So like one that I reached out to, this incredible school in our area that is it's for underprivileged children, and I mean it's almost like military school, but it's to get them into the private schools. So it's all about education, right? And they have to, I mean, it's literally year round, and parents even need to be involved. So, for example, Connection reached out, hey, I'm all excited. I want to come in and teach budgeting. Well, guess what? Regions Bank's been coming in teaching for 4 years. I was like, oh, he said, but you know what? Would you come in and teach budgeting to our parents? And I'm like, absolutely, right? I mean, even you look at the mission, of FirstHome IQ, right? It's education. And these are parents that most of them probably or they have never owned homes. So I just think, and then for me, if that's easy, but I ask that question, just do you have a budget? And I don't know about you guys, but 80% of the time the answer is no, right? And every once in a while you might get a fuzzy. So like that's where just using that as a foot in the door, I just think it's so easy. So
I love that.
make your
I think
list.
strategy, I mean, that trickles down and it
Yeah.
also helps your business. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. The parent strategy webinar, which we worked with Tim Brahim and he was on a class with us in December talking about that strategy.
Awesome.
And yeah, and I just, there's a whole avenue there that's really, I think, impactful. But
Kristen,
also,
can I just
yeah,
tell you one before?
yeah,
Sorry. Because I think someone, and I don't know who asked it, it sounds like you've had success just personally, because I have done I've even done budgeting with my agents, like P&L, like all of that. And personally, I have had much more success and impact when it's been in person. Um, Obviously COVID, we had to do webinar, and if people are out of state, you have to do webinar. But man, when I go into any organization, you agree, Vicma, I mean, we're working the room, the team's with me, I'm looking people in the eye, they're sharing, like they're just sharing their story, right? We're always asking more questions, what's your belief about money, right? And I love what you said, Vicma, start with savings. That's a whole class. Like I might add that before you jump jump into budgeting, but so I've had much more success with in person.
Good. So as we are closing out, this is a perfect segue. I would love to hear any quick hits around how you create an engaging environment in that classroom. Because I think a lot of people feel intimidated about actually going in. They might be able to set it up, but then it's like, okay, this is very different than working one-on-one with somebody. So Jane, you just gave some great insights there. Any other insights from anybody on the panel?
Well, Memo, I'm going to go really quickly. It's building trust, right? So the first few sessions, I don't come in with any scripts, any bullet points, nothing. You're just going to go and share your story, and you're going to hear them share their story. And that's what builds trust. And Jane, as you mentioned, in person is best always because they feel more comfortable, right? Also, you'll get pulled to the side after the sessions, and conversations that they didn't feel comfortable sharing, they will then share with you on the side. So always in person is best if you can, especially during the first few sessions, because you want to build that trust. Thereafter, if you want to accommodate the majority, yes, but I agree wholeheartedly. It's in person.
Yeah, I agree with all of you guys, and that ability to work a room, right? To get somebody to engage with you. That person could be asking a question that 15 other people are thinking, but they're too shy to ask, right? I'm getting prepared to do my first public one here in our conference center. I'm starting to do all the marketing for it. And I have a struggle from the very beginning. Do I do it on Zoom? And I get questions, people, sending me messages even this morning. Are you doing this on Zoom? Somebody from about 2.5 hours away who I used to work with is like, hey, my son would be perfect for this class. Are you doing it on Zoom? And it's like, what do I do? How do I choose? Right? I know I'm more comfortable in person. I'm way more comfortable getting that engagement with people, seeing their body language, their facial expressions and things like that when you hit a point that should trigger something in them. So I'm struggling right now with what do I do? Do I, set up some camera stuff and do both? I don't know. But I know that I prefer the in-person and those conversations right afterwards. They're the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Requires more tech, but you can do both. The other thing is if you can create some social content from it. So if you not potentially, if you're with minors, don't get their, faces in there, but you can have somebody record on their phone, or just set up a thing that's recording you and create some social content from that. Or just have some photos, that type of thing that then you tell the story and then do the webinars separately. But I think you're going to have more impact in person, but you may have more reach over webinars. So depending on the groups, but those are different strategies. Okay, thank you guys so much for being on this call. I want to quickly mention again, if anybody is interested in being part of the ambassador program, we do have a ton of resources here. Oh, if you are going into classrooms, by the way, I'm happy to share. We'll move some of this into the ambassador program, but we do have activities. I used to teach in juvenile detention centers, and keeping people focused. It was hard with any kind of presentation, but activities were helpful. So depending on, what kind of room you're in, that might be something you want to look into. But we have, like I said, presentations covering money management all the way through buying your first home. We have marketing resources from email, social media, outreach. We have quiz landing pages for every ambassador that is kind of a lead gen form. And we have ongoing events and strategy calls for our ambassadors. So, but otherwise, regardless, everybody on this call, again, is going to get some social content, a full playbook. We have resources for teachers that you can share, including a presentation for delivering this to an educator if you want to use it just as talking points, or actually deliver it as a presentation to say, hey, here's what I can offer to the classroom. So thank you guys all for being on the call and taking some time today. This is really impactful and inspiring.